has changed. America has changed. If something were to happen tomorrow, how self-sufficient would you be? Could you grow your own food? Could you sustain your own livestock? Could you survive? This is the We Grow Our Show with Nick and Don. Nick and Don talk about everything from politics to planting. They cover techniques, methods, and tips on how to not only survive, but thrive. Visit the website at WeGrowOurs.com. Lock and load. This is the We Grow Our Show. Get your grow on.
Welcome back to the We Grow Our Show.
I almost fell out of my chair. I didn't expect you to yell like that.
Welcome back, sucker.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be fun to edit that down a little. You peaked my meters.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just amped up. You know why?
Why?
Because I just slammed 2 monsters in a row, baby.
Did you? I told you.
No, I'm kidding. I didn't.
For a natural food guy, you need to stop drinking those things. I'll tell you.
I'm kidding. I didn't have any.
You
I'm
look
trying
like
to
you're
quit.
amped up.
That's because Mr. Nazi over here wouldn't let me pee before we started recording, so I'm shaking a little bit here.
That would explain that. All right.
So if I look like a chihuahua shaking because there's a new person in the room.
It's going to be a really short intro.
It is. We're gonna take a quick break here in a minute, folks. Wow, Mr. Klein relieves his waters.
Nice.
Oh, no.
I think that's TMI for our listeners.
Well, everybody pees, Don. It's just urine.
So what do you do if you have to pee and you've got 6 feet of snow outside your house and all your plumbing is frozen?
Well, you write your name in the snow, buddy.
Have you looked
and you don't eat the yellow snow.
That's right. So Buffalo, New York, 7 feet of snow in places.
Yeah.
Can you, I mean, we live in Arizona. It's Thanksgiving is coming up. The show won't be out before that. So happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody enjoyed it. It's going to be 80 degrees on Thursday. On Thanksgiving Day, it's 80 degrees. I'm going to have to turn the AC in my house on because we have people coming over, and I know it's going to get too hot if it's 80 degrees.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to have to leave some of the windows open, but I'm going to have to turn the AC on. Buffalo, New York, 7 feet of snow.
Yeah. That's pretty sad. Well, for them.
Yeah. You know? Well, are you prepared to do that? That's a lot of snow, and it's a lot of flooding to follow the snow, which is where we're getting to right now.
Honestly, I don't foresee 7 foot of snow hitting us here in the greater Valley of the Sun.
Point taken.
But we've had some pretty bitchin' sandstorms. I've never been buried in.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of haboobs.
Yeah, there's haboobies come and go, you know?
Yeah, that's hey, that was a good joke there. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, the worst we have to do is go wash our cars the next day and not drive in it because people are dumb.
Well, you know, unfortunately, some people out there were not prepared.
Yeah, they got caught with their pants down.
Yeah. I mean, I would think you could, even if you're stuck in your car and it's buried in snow, you got almost a built-in igloo.
Yeah, without food.
Well, that was interesting. One of the Facebook posts I saw, and I don't know if this is true or you know, urban legend type thing. One of the people she was stuck in her car, or I think it was a she actually, was stuck in her car, got buried on a side road and in there for a few days. Survival kit in the trunk.
Really? She had a bug out bag?
In the trunk.
Nice.
She couldn't get to it.
Oh.
The car was buried under, 4 foot of snow.
Well, she didn't have one of the back seats.
Couldn't get the back seat no, not with that car, apparently. They can't.
I thought all of them did.
Mine doesn't.
Really?
Not unless you're in the trunk and you pull the thing. Now, I would have grabbed a knife or something and cut through the seat. Huh. But I guess there's some cars that you can't get into that trunk from the car. So survival kit sitting in the back. Now, she was rescued and all, but 3-4 days knowing that thing is back there. So that's a prepper. I had never given it a thought. My wife is always saying, make sure we have the survival kit, first aid kit in the trunk. If you can't get to it, it's not going to do you any good. Keep it in the back seat if it's snowing out. I guess it would be the lesson from that.
Yeah. There's certain things that I keep in my truck within arm's reach. Survival kit's not one of them. Well, I've got a small first aid kit that I that I have at the ready in case I get locked into a seatbelt, hung upside down and bleeding. I can, fix myself up until I can get uncut. But
I've got a seatbelt cutter.
Oh yeah,
little knife thingy that'll crack windows and cut seatbelts and all that. So here's a question that you might know the answer to. Then we talk about homesteading up in that area. What happens to the cows and the goats? I mean,
they have fur.
Well, that's a lot of snow. I mean, does everybody up there have barns? That might be a silly question, but I actually don't know. I would think cows, when I grew up in Jersey, the cows were out free ranging and then they would come in. But all these free range animals, I would assume they don't have a place. They can't round them up before the snowstorm, do they?
No, and they don't. My dad actually, he's got 40 head of beef cattle on his farm. And most of the winter, they're down in the lower pastures and on his cornfields and stuff. And the only coverage is the trees. And trees do pretty good because they'll collect a bunch of snow on top of them, and then you'll have areas where it's not as bad.
Right.
But it sucks because now they got to trudge through all that snow to get to the round bale feeders, and then you also have to trudge through that with your tractor, and it can get kind of intense and a little bit scary. The vehicles don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different world of prepping, something that I hadn't thought of because obviously we live in Arizona, which is, again, 80 degrees on Thanksgiving. There's a problem with this too. We have to prep for 120 degrees in the summertime in case the electric goes out for some reason or we don't have any water. How do we water our animals? I've never had to deal with prepping for 7 feet of snow. I mean, I can't imagine. So
yeah.
Small world though. This country you've got so many climates and so many things to prepare for.
Well, even in Arizona, we have all 7 of the climates.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, we even have rainforest in the lower southeast corner, I believe it is. We've got a little bit of rainforest there.
Yeah, not much.
Well, they have juvenile jaguars.
I agree. Yeah.
Anyway, random facts about Arizona. I would say rule number 1, keep a flamethrower next to your front door.
There you go. A rabbit powered flamethrower.
Yeah. That's the way to do it.
And you could get a hamster wheel and let them run on that, generate some electricity, right?
There you go.
So actually that would be, if any of our listeners are up in that area and you guys went through this, I'd love to hear from you.
Definitely.
Shoot us an email, wegrowrs.com/askus, or leave a message on there and tell us a story about what you did while you were stuck in your house with 7 feet of snow outside. That's got to be the other thing that just drives you nuts, is not being able to go outside. So I'd love to hear
cabin fever.
Yeah. You got to have some board games.
Oh yeah. Well, was it lights out too, or were they?
I would imagine you get that kind of snow. I would think people are going to have electrical problems.
Yeah.
Most of those are high power lines, and that's a lot of snow to be putting on there. So I'm sure some people did.
So in some parts of the country, we've got 7 feet of snow. In other parts of the country, we've got hoodlums running the streets, looting, stealing.
Yeah. Bad situation all around.
Yeah. Ferguson.
Yeah.
Place I don't want to be.
Nope. Have no desire to go there. That's for sure.
Anybody planning their holiday vacation to Ferguson probably ought to reconsider.
Yeah. And I hope everybody that does live out there is well prepped.
Yeah, exactly. So did you get a chance to look at any of the evidence on the case? Or?
I posted a link on my personal Facebook page.
Don's out there mining for friends.
But I do get
feeling
political.
Lonely.
I do get political.
Yeah, if you want a taste of the real libertarian, this is the guy.
Yeah, I'm not going I don't want to get too much into the Ferguson stuff. I pray for peace out there. I hope everybody can continue to keep a cool head. We record on Tuesdays. So there was the verdict came out yesterday, the day before this podcast. I'm sure the looting has either started or will be starting soon. And I just hope,
Didn't it start yesterday?
Yeah, but it's going to start again tonight. And
you think it's going to keep going?
I do, for at least a little while. And, again, I don't want to get into the whole politics of it. All I'm going to say right now is I hope everybody stays safe.
Well, there you go.
And there's a good way to stay safe at your own house is to put up bushes around your house that have thorns on them.
There you go.
You know where I learned that from?
Survivor Jane.
You got it on Doomsday Prepper.
Oh.
She was on the same season you were.
Well, this year, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited. All right, next up, let's have Survivor Jane. Welcome back to the We Grow Ours show. We have a not in studio guest. We have Survivor Jane on the phone. How are you doing today, Jane?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
You're transmitting from an undisclosed location in the Appalachian Mountains, if I'm correct.
That is correct.
Incognito. I love it. So you haven't always been up in the birthplace of the term redneck, up in the Appalachians. You started off as a city girl, am I right?
Yeah, the majority of my life has been a city girl, absolutely.
So what was the catalyst? What got you out of the city?
Well, guys, honestly, it wasn't one thing. I'm from Orlando, Florida, and you know that's the hurricane capital. And I guess my eyes were kind of opened up a little bit in 2004, but not enough to make me do anything. When we had back-to-back hurricanes 2 weeks apart from one another, 3 of them. And first one took my roof, and then it continued on from there. So, you know, we were out without power. We were without a lot of different things, you know, trees down every place. That was a big eye-opener as far as, wow, you know, I'm not seeing this on TV anymore. This is close to home. But, you know, the non-prepper mentality is, well, that's okay. No big deal. I've got my debit card. I'll just go and I'll go to the ATM machine. Well, guess what? There's no power.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. You know, I had an eighth of a tank of gas at the time, and went to the gas station and they were closed. Oh, guess what? They work on electricity also, the pumps do. You know, I mean, it was just those little things that most of us, and unfortunately, there's more of me out there than there are of the preparedness minded. So that's where my message comes from.
So what hurricane was that, out of curiosity? Do you remember what year?
Yes, it was 2004. It was Charlie, Ivan, and Francis.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember those. There was another big one just before that my sister had actually moved out there and was in Punta Gorda. And
Punta Gorda was, yep,
And they actually had, I think, 6 feet of water in their living room, and decided that Florida wasn't quite what they wanted, and they moved back to Arizona. So you were not a prepper at that point, though. This is kind of what opened your eyes to the whole movement and what got you involved?
Then we moved on. I will say that after that, then, of course, the housing market, you know, where everybody's house became worth absolutely nothing. And the biggest pinch for me was my 401k. I was losing, honestly, $7,000 a month. Now, that was money that I had been putting in for years and years and years, doubling up, because, honestly, I am a consumer, and I wanted to live in the same style that I was used to, and that means you've got to have money to do that. So I was really stocking it away, and I was just watching it drain. I went to my HR person. I said, look, I need to know what I can do about losing all this money, because they were self-insured. And so all that money stayed in, and they just turned it over with, you know, internally. And they said, well, you've got 2 options. You can quit, you know, or you can die. And it's like, oh, gee, die, quit, you know. And honestly, that is when I thought, you know, it's not worth all this, me losing it. I would never be able to recoup this. But the straw that broke the camel's back, I'm leaving my 16th floor downtown parking garage, and I am held up by 2 men, gunpoint. They had just robbed somebody at an ATM machine, and they were looking for somebody as a getaway car. That was the point that it was like, you know what? I'm not in Kansas anymore. I don't feel safe anymore. I don't have any money. My house isn't worth anything. What if something happened? What if there was some type of civil risk situation where I couldn't get out of here? And that's where my eyes were kind of open to, you know, this is not a world that I thought I had lived in.
Wow.
That is, wow.
Yeah.
That's a wow story right there.
Out of those lemons, you went ahead and you made lemonade, and you became, and you are one of the most popular prepper websites and especially hashtags on Twitter.
Well, you know, where that came from is I decided to start researching what preparedness meant. And the more sites that I went on, the more frustrated I got, because they were talking in all these weird acronyms, You know, it's like, what the heck is Bob? You know, what does that mean? And what do you want? EDC? It's like, why can't you people just, I was spending more time, guys, going to other sites to figure out what these words meant than I was actually learning. And so I thought, you know what? There are too many people out there that are just like me that probably get so frustrated because they feel like you have to be on members only to understand what what is being said, that they just give up. So I didn't want them to give up. I mean, it was my mission that I wanted to share what I had learned. So that's why I created Survivor Jane, because I wanted to show that there are more people like me that are oblivious to what's going on. And it's not all about, a lot of people get so caught up in stuff. You know, let me get a bug out bag or let me get an emergency bag and just fill it with stuff, but they have no idea what it is. They get in that panic mode and they know they need to do something. So I try to share with them an easy, understand, I call it girl talk, you know, but it's just kind of talk to the fifth grader type of talk where it's like, you know, I say the same thing that some of these other sites say, but I just say it a little bit gentler.
I like that. It's a prepper talk for those that aren't preppers yet, kind of.
We have I'm in IT and we have geek speak. It's the same thing. You have to talk to people in a language they understand. Otherwise, they're not going to be interested in it in the first place. So,
and they do get frustrated. Now, Prepper Talk was born August of 2011. I was on Facebook because I love these social media places, but it's hard to find preparedness-minded people because they go by Bob with the hat on or Joe Smith or what. So you cannot tell who is a preparedness-minded person and who's not. So I thought, you know what? I wonder if I created a hashtag and start promoting it, if people would start using that as a means to start talking with each other. And as it started out, we started talks where we would have at 6 in the evening time, Eastern time, until it was supposed to be 12 o'clock midnight, but because it went all the way over to Western, it would go until 3 o'clock in the morning where people were just talking with each other about all types of different preparedness topics. And that's how it really started getting momentum. But it also doesn't give you a life either because you're exhausted after 6 to midnight for, you know, months and months and months. And it went on for quite a while until it was like, okay, I think it's got its momentum now. I don't need to be doing this all the time. And it's probably one of the most recognized hashtags internationally, worldwide now.
I like it. And then from there, see, what's funny is prepping used to be kind of the boys club, right?
Absolutely.
I'm seeing a lot more ladies coming out to the prepper events and actually looking at one of the books here. Let's see, what is it? Where There Is No Cosmetic Counter. I love that title, by the way.
Well, you know, that all came from me living on a homestead. And you know what? I can't go to the department stores anymore. The nearest true department store is better than an hour away. And I don't have the funds anymore. When I left Orlando, I left my job, I sold my home, and whatever I had, I took to move to the hills and start homesteading. So that means that all the pennies are allotted for livelihood now. It's not a frivolous spending. So I can't buy the things that I used to. And I got to thinking, you know, I wonder what people would do if they couldn't go, if there was no more cosmetic counters, you know, where you could buy lotions, you could buy soaps, you could buy whatever. But then, people, they feared that pink cover for some reason.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a lot of men followers and they got the concept, but they just could not grasp buying a pink book. So
We're vain people. We're very vain. If it was pink camouflage, maybe. That's right.
And so that's where my second revision came in. And that's emergency survival hygiene. It's the same book. It's just revised with a nice index in it and a different color that would be a little bit more gender friendly. And so what it's all about is just, again, if you couldn't have any type of hygiene products, what would you do? And I learned, guys, that everything that we use can be made with stuff out of the kitchen. No lie. I mean, everything you could use either out of your food pantry, and out of your kitchen or out of your garden. And I thought, God, talk about redundancy. You don't have to use all that storage space for cases and cases of soaps and shampoos and whatever. You can make it with just stuff that you have in your kitchen. So I'm thinking, what a great resource book to have on the shelf, that if in fact whoever hits the fan, you can say, okay, I'm out of soap. Now what do I do? My family's going to look at me, Dad, what do we use? And that's the why for the book.
I love it. The pink cover, I have an excuse. I would just buy it for my wife, and then of course I'd have to read it. But
yeah, that's what the guys say. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Listen, I have 4 little sisters. I've made the late night runs to pick up hygiene products that I had no earthly business buying. So there's a few of us out here that still buy it with the pink cover, but I'm glad you made it okay for all of us.
That's right. So one of the things that you just mentioned was you moved into the homesteading. So what was that transition from the city girl life to the homesteading, and what was the challenges, and what have you come out, and what's the good part about it? That up and down.
Well, the good part, I will say, no stress. I mean, it is amazing how, even talking with my sisters back in Orlando, and I hear about, you can tell that they still, they still have that stress. I mean, me, I had to drive in Orlando. I had to drive 15 miles, and it took 45 minutes or so to get there.
Oh, that is.
And they still
idling
have
in
to do
traffic.
that. And they still have to, and they still have to deal with bosses, and they still have to I have to deal with 40 animals. I can do that. Even though I was a one pet person, and I really wasn't big on dogs because they lick you and smell of you and all this stuff, and they stink, Now I have 8 goats, and I have ducks, and I have bunnies, and I have, and it's a learning process all the time. And that's what I love, because I share, good or bad, it doesn't matter. If I make a mistake, I make a huge mistake. I wasn't used to being in the kitchen. I'll really give you something that was kind of gross. I got a mandolin slicer. I don't know if you know what that is or not, but it's one of the sharpest slicers that you can get, that you can cut tomatoes and onions and whatever. Brand new. I got it, and I figured, hey, you know what? I don't have to use the guard because I can do this. I sliced a 1/4 inch slice off of the side of my thumb. I mean, now I share that because of the fact that, is it gross? Absolutely. But I talk about gross stuff because I don't want you to do that. I want to learn. And so that's what's so neat about this experience. I'm learning, making these mistakes, and I can share them with you. My thumb healed perfect with honey.
With honey?
That's all I did was I put honey on it and continued keeping honey on it. And you would think it would have had a big divot on the side of my thumb. Nothing. It's really? Completely normal. All because I packed it with honey. I mean, how amazing is that?
That's amazing. But the problem that I have is if I had honey on my finger, I would be licking my finger. I'd just be like, nom, 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 nom. Blood. Oh, no. Oh, gosh. Too deep. Anyway.
And I think that's where the wrapping comes in. It doesn't look quite appeasing when you have a big old thumb wrapped with white gauze. So maybe that'd help a little bit. But
that just sounds like a snow cone to me. This is a lose-lose situation.
A honey snow cone.
Oh, that's funny.
Now you're also writing some articles for a couple of magazines, correct?
Absolutely.
How's that going?
Well, you know what? I enjoy it. I've actually started out as a contributor with National Geographic Channel, doing writing blogs for them. And Rick Austin and I actually, in season 3, we did what were called budget builds, where for every episode, Nat Geo gave us a big budget of, I think it was $50 to duplicate what these people were spending millions on, or hundreds of thousands on it. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a challenge, and it was able to show people that it's not necessarily all about money. And even my homestead here, I write about that. We don't have air conditioning. We don't have central heat. We don't have anything. It is a passive solar home, and what you see is what you get. Now, if you would walk in, you would never know from the inside that it was a homestead, because I still am a girly girl, and I still have to have my nice things, but it's more condensed. I mean, I think of, okay, what if I couldn't do this, and I make a way now to learn how to do it, whether it's grinding grain, whether it's washing clothes outside, whether it's, I do all of this stuff. And I'll tell you, it's not easy. And if, in fact, anything was to happen where we would be in a situation, a grid down situation, it's not necessarily just the surviving, but it's going to be learning how to survive also.
I agree with you there. You mentioned your involvement with Nat Geo and Doomsday Preppers. You were also featured this year. We spoke a little bit about that off the air, but you were featured in season 4. Am I right?
You are right. And that was, they had been asking for several years, and I had been saying no, only because I didn't like the way they were portrayed. I don't think that that's the way the majority of us are. Now, there are some extremists, and that's with everything that you find, but unfortunately, I just didn't agree with that. And they said the theme was going to be back to basics. And when I heard that, that's what I'm all about. And I agreed. Absolutely. I would come on. And thankfully, it wasn't too painful. There were some things, but just don't drink any of the tea that I serve. And what else? As far as the peppers, yeah, don't come around any of those hot peppers, I guess. But
for me, that episode, one of the reasons I liked it, there were 2 episodes I love this year, obviously, but yours was one of them. And the garden was amazing to me. And what was it? Are they grapes that you're putting out? The vines as a fence line? Wasn't that on your episode?
Yeah, off the orange. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I mean, those 2 things and the way that garden was laid out was amazing. It blew my mind. I hadn't thought about doing that before. And I'm actually looking at ways to integrate aquaponics into that type of layout.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I had a fit when I heard what the plan was going to be. It was like, you're going to do what? I'm a straight row girl. I like things straight. I like things nice and tidy. I like everything to be all neat and orderly. And this is not a neat and orderly garden, but it is unbelievable, the produce. In fact, I still have, and I hope that nothing happens, because I have freezers full of food still that I'm trying to catch up from last year, and it's just continuing to come in, and it's just me, and it's almost, I'm in the kitchen all the time, either making cheeses, or I'm making, I make anything and everything now. And same thing with the food, the vegetables and the fruits that are coming in. I mean, it's really hard to fathom. And when people come, they look around and they go, well, where's the garden? And it's like, you're standing in it. This is it. It was like, all this? And it's like an Easter egg hunt. You find things all over the place. It's like, oh, look, there's some tomatoes, and here's some cucumbers going. And then, of course, you've got your apples, and you've got your plums, and you've got your figs. And it's honestly, it is a Garden of Eden. And you don't do anything but pick. Or harvest.
You can't beat that. I mean,
no.
The security of the fence line was the other part of that. I mean, you did this naturally, and you can use it for livestock, so your goats don't go running out. You can use it for intruders not coming in. And my wife and I have been looking at some properties. We're looking up in the Washington, Idaho area. Your episode got me thinking that when I've been drawing these things out, and we look at these aerial views of the properties, I'm thinking, how much food can I produce in that layout along with aquaponics? So what I want to do is put a pond in the middle. And then work my grow beds out from there, and then go traditional garden in a circle around it. And
right now we have a pond also, and it does exactly that. It kind of filters we have a grade water system, and so it baffles through, and then it can go into the pond, and we could actually use that as overflow. But honestly, we haven't watered the garden in, oh my gosh, several years, because it kind of takes care of itself. It kind of creates those, they're like little pond or little, I don't know, like eye-shaped type of water catchers underneath the berms. And it's really amazing when people were having a really dry season up here about 2 or 3 years ago, we were flourishing up here. And it's just an amazing thing because we're just letting nature do what nature does.
Yeah, just directing it just slightly in your favor.
Yeah, what I like and what I don't like as far as the food.
Well, it's what's funny is, well, it's not even funny, but Mother Nature doesn't plant stuff in rows, except for tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds plant in rows, but nobody likes tumbleweeds. You can't eat them. But everything else is just sporadic wherever the poop drops, really.
True, and it's amazing to watch trellis things climb on trees and they go over and under and whatever. And that's why I say it's like an Easter egg hunt sometimes because of the fact that something has moved its way on down the line. And it's like, oh, look, here's some strawberries here, or, so it's not, and plus the insect issue. Where you've got something all in a straight line of the same thing, it's going to be like a buffet table, smorgasbord. They're just going to be going from one plant to the next. So this way, it makes them actually work. So they have to go from here all the way down to that berm and come on back here. So it makes it, as far as the pest control also, it's so much easier because we don't use any type of herbicides or pesticides or insecticides.
Gotta love that. That's the way you're supposed to be doing things.
Yeah.
Well,
you're not going to have it if the food hits the fan. You're not going to have it. So
exactly.
And that's our lifestyle. If we can't get it, then we don't want it now.
I hear a lot about the garden and a lot about some of the things you're doing as homesteading.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you a prepper then?
Well, I think that prepping is subjective to us. It's just being a little bit more responsible for our own well-being. It's just being a little bit more self-reliant and not being so reliant on the almighty dollar necessarily or our government. You ask a person, what is a prepper? Well, to me, it's all about just planning ahead. We plan ahead for trips. We plan ahead for birth in our family. We plan ahead for birthdays. We are a planning society. So I'm just planning ahead that just in case something were to happen, that I would be prepared. But if it doesn't, I'm all the better for it. I am living a great stress-free life and eating healthy, doing fun things, being around the animals and working in the kitchen. And I don't have somebody over me telling me I have to do this and I have to do that. I'm actually, like I said, I learn something all the time, every day. And that's the exciting part. So prepper, you know what? I am a preparedness-minded person.
Hey, that's one heck of an answer right there. And usually I tell people that the progression is more of you become a prepper when you get nervous. You buy a bunch of canned foods, you get your ammunition, you get the stuff that you can buy up. But graduation from prepper is homesteader. Where you've taken over your property and you're making it work for you. And it's a mindset change. And I appreciate that explanation of that.
But you know what? I want to stress to the lady listeners. I say I'm a farmer, but you know what? I get up, I do my hair, I do my makeup. I do my nails.
And those goats appreciate it.
They don't care if I'm wearing my nightgown or wearing overalls. I will tell you,
as long as you bring the trough and fill it up, right?
but you know what? I do care, and I don't want to give up that. And so that's what I try to show when I go out and talk at expos or conventions. I try to stress, because I love for somebody to come up to me when they first meet me and they say, "You're a prepper?" I'm not quite sure what that means or not, but I don't have the third eye that's showing maybe, so I keep it covered up. But I want to show that it's not about giving up. It's about gaining, and that's where that planning comes in. If you've planned and you're planning ahead, you're not going to have to sweat it. It's going to be a little hiccup if the power goes out. It's going to be a little hiccup if something happens, just like up north right now with that snow in Buffalo. If you've planned ahead, you're going to be warm. You're going to have redundancy of some type of alternate heat for yourself. You're going to have food. But you're not going to hear about that. You're going to hear about the dismal people that are trying to shovel out right now that weren't prepared.
Absolutely. That's a bad situation up there too. That's a lot of snow, and I think there's a lot of flooding coming from that. So.
Yeah, and that's it. You know what? Disasters know no time. They're going to come when they want to. So that's where you plan for one, you plan for all of them. You know, you've got your basic needs covered. You know, you've got your water, you've got your food, you've got your security, and you've got your protection. Then you can get into your first aid and communications and on and on and on. But if you have your basic needs covered first, you should be fine.
So I have a question for you. We're running out of time, so I want to get this out there. You've
Sure.
gone through the journey from city girl to homesteader prepper. So if you could pick out maybe one or two things that you've experienced along the way that you could steer somebody and say, this is the biggest choice that you either did correct or you did incorrectly, and give that advice to those people.
My huge advice is preparedness is like eating an elephant. You have to do it one step at a time, one bite at a time. And there's no way you can do it all at once. And the second thing and the most critical part is don't buy and not try. Do not go out. I see these people, and I'm sure you all have seen it too at these conventions. They just buy. It's like, oh, wait, I got to have that, and oh, wait, I got to have that. And they don't try it, and they don't even know if it'll work. And heaven forbid something were to happen, that is not the time to start. So I stress if you feel that you need to buy something, don't buy it and just pack it away. Don't buy without trying.
That's really good advice. It's like you can't buy a cage system from me and have it sitting at your house, and then all of a sudden disaster strikes. Oh, time to start raising rabbits. You know.
But you know what? And honestly, we all do it. I'll tell you, we all do it. And I have found that when I pulled out something to go to try to use it, it didn't work.
Yeah.
So you spent all that money and you didn't know for a whole year that what you had that you thought you were going to rely on doesn't work. There was a piece missing, or it warped, or it, on and on and on. So if you're going to have something, make sure that you need it and make sure that it is something that you could use. But I stress redundancy also. There's so many things that we can use as redundant preps. So it's not all about just one thing.
Yeah, we're going to be doing, and it'll probably be next year at this point, but we were asked to do a show on sun ovens. It actually came from a listener of ours wanting to talk about alternate cooking methods. So Sun Ovens was gracious enough to send us a sun oven, and I've been using this thing now, 2-3 times a week for the last 2 months, 3 months. And I found the good and the bad about it because we've gotten it out of the box, we've set it up, and we've used it. If it wasn't for this show, I can probably tell you we would have gotten that and set it there and said, okay, we're prepared, and never ever opened it, never used it unless we thought it was an emergency. So.
And that's what I think we all do. I honestly, anybody that says they don't is like liar, liar, pants on fire, because that we all have done it.
I don't think I hear that term enough there.
There you go.
For our grown-up listeners, that means. No, I love it. Well, Jane, thank you so much for joining us. I've had a really good time. Any words of wisdom as we shut her down?
No, I would just think about Christmas. Like I said, hygiene. People don't realize that infectious disease is the number one death worldwide. It's cause of death worldwide. And what are you going to do when you don't have that toilet paper? What are you going to do when you don't have that soap? So I'd suggest that you check out Emergency Survival Hygiene. Amazon, both Kindle and paperback.
And we'll have that link on our show notes. Mm-hmm. And where else can people find you? On Twitter, I know the hashtag preppertalk, but other than that, where can we go to find more information on you, to contact you, and to follow you?
Thank you. I have my website, survivorjane.com. I'm also on Facebook, Survivor Jane. I'm also on Google+, Survivor Jane. I'm also on LinkedIn, Survivor Jane, YouTube, Survivor Jane. There's a pattern here.
That's right.
When in doubt, just Google Survivor Jane and you'll find me.
Perfect. Well, I'll get as many of those links in the show notes as possible. We'll get some information for all of our listeners, and we really appreciate your time and joining us tonight.
Guys, I really, really appreciate you asking me. I've enjoyed it, and I want to wish you a happy holiday to you and yours.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll catch you later. All right. I liked having her on.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Yep.
I didn't know her story, actually.
Yeah, I had no idea that Orlando City girl turned prepper.
I know. I've looked at her website a few times and gone through it, but I use the hash. If anybody follows us on Twitter, which is on Twitter at We Grow Ours.
Good one, Don.
Do you like that?
Yeah, just throw it in there.
Yeah. You know, I use that Prepper Talk hashtag all the time. It's huge in Prepper Talk. I never correlated Survival Jane with the Prepper Talk hashtag.
Oh, there you go.
So if you guys are on Twitter, use it.
The more you know.
And of course, use pound We Grow Ours.
Of course. Pound us. Did I just say that? Don't do that. Hashtag hash us. There we go. That's even better.
Yeah. So, yeah, use that hashtag. I'd love to see that trend. I think we're a little ways off of that. But, you know, if everybody who's ever listened to the show went on and did it, we'd have something.
Yeah, seriously. Help us out, folks. On a completely off the topic subject, I decided to revamp the flamethrower.
You mentioned to me that you were going to do that.
Yeah, I didn't do it on the air, though, did I?
No.
So, check it out.
Now, this is
Spit it out.
Don't try this at home.
No, please do.
Nick is just talking theory here, because having a flamethrower obviously is illegal in a lot of areas, right?
No. It's designed to burn weeds in ditches.
But I think having a flamethrower may be illegal in some areas.
Well,
I mean,
if you can buy a torch at Home Depot that shoots a 3-foot flame out to burn ditches, you can use an alternative fuel method.
That shoots 30 feet?
Well, that's just higher efficiency,
I'm just
Don.
saying, and you know.
Look up your local law, maybe talk to a police officer and say, hey, I'm looking to build something to clear some ditches.
I would just not ask anybody.
Oh, come on.
And by the way, for the NSA and all those people who I know listen, it's nick@hostlehair.com.
Anyways, now that everybody's listening, the flamethrower that I used on Doomsday Preppers was just a gravity fed, had a little hopper in it, and it had a shot vac blowing backwards through the tube. So it's very simple. I just threw it together because they're like, oh, could you do this? We'll say that it's self-defense. I'm like, yeah, because flamethrowers are really good self-defense.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it was still pretty fun.
Of course, I would just shoot the tank.
Yeah, you'd shoot the tank and then boom. Yeah. But, so I got thinking, what's a better way of doing that? Because with a shot vac, you're tethered to a cord.
Right.
And then you have to have a big, heavy propane tank.
Weed eater.
Weed eater? How would a weed eater work?
Weed blower.
A leaf blower.
There you go.
So my father-in-law, the no-limit soldier that he is, he's got to blow some leaves, and he goes and buys a $600 backpack leaf blower.
Love it.
So, hell yeah, I'm going to use it, because it's not mine. And he has, seriously, that thing, he bought it, he used it once, and it spent like 6 months at the neighbor's house. So, I love the guy. He's awesome, but sometimes.
Now you need to make a cage that attaches to it so you don't have endless poop.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. So I'm thinking of putting this backpack on, having the leaf blower. You're like, have you ever played the game Mega Man?
No.
He's got an arm that's a cannon.
Okay.
Like he's a
I've
robot.
seen that, yeah.
And anyway, so you have like this Mega Man arm that you hook the hopper up to a plug-in that goes right over the tip of the leaf blower.
Love it.
And just walking around, it's gas powered, and you just put a little torch on the end. You don't need to have the big torch. You can have a little torch.
Right.
And just blast away. Now you're
weeds.
mobile.
At weeds.
At weeds,
Yeah.
yes.
And the
Only
ditches.
weeds and
Only
ditches.
weeds in the ditches.
With your fire marshal present.
That's right. I love that idea. I could see you doing that too.
So,
have you done it yet, or are you going to?
We're going to.
Okay.
I took a week off of work with no plans of going anywhere except for into my shop. And it is going to be madness for a week.
Your wife is going to go insane.
She's not going to see me.
Oh, you're going to be in the shop.
I'm going to be in the shop. And I've got 3 projects, 2 of which are alternative fuels, and then the third one is the backpack.
Nice. What are the alternative fuels?
Do we?
I'm just curious.
Okay,
I mean,
so
you
it's
don't have to.
well, okay. I've had a few things, a little bit of light shed on a couple of old theories that I'm rekindling. So, HHO gas.
Okay.
I had a demonstration to me. I watched the ohm meter. I saw how much it was costing in energy.
Right. You had mentioned this. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I believe in thermodynamics. There's the laws of thermodynamics. The only thing that is stopping me from saying, "Oh my gosh, this is a miracle," is the fact that there's thermodynamics, and
It doesn't work in your head yet.
exactly. My head, I got to get my head around it. So I'm looking at this setup, and the guy plugs it into the wall, throws a meter on it to tell me what the consumption is, what the voltage drop is, how much wattage he's using to do this.
Right.
And it's running a damn engine.
That's
so,
awesome.
And it's like nothing. The amount of power being produced by the engine is able to recoup what it's needing to
generate its own fuel,
to make HHO gas.
That's awesome. And you know, since we did the David Bloom episode, what was that, 40? I think episode 40 with David Bloom. So if you're interested, go back to that one. I've been doing a lot of it. I was never into alternative energies like you, but I keep going back and watching, and I'm learning so much. I'm like, wow, I'm still stuck on ethanol. I think it's an amazing thing, especially for the investment. I don't understand why we're not doing it.
I know why we're not doing it.
Yeah, because of the money that the lobbyists spent on telling us we shouldn't.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you, I keep going back to this magnetic thing. And that to me is really cool because, you know, you can't destroy or create energy and all this.
But that doesn't apply to fields.
Right. And we have all this magnetic energy anyway.
And it's not, technically it's not perpetual. It's not perpetual motion because the sun is what's supplying the ionic energy to the earth.
Yeah. Is that what creates the magnetic field?
I don't know.
See, I don't quite understand the whole magnetic field thing and what's doing it in the first place, but I know it's there regardless.
Basically, okay, so this is
and Tesla, by the way.
Just randomly throw his name out there. Tesla.
Tesla. Yeah, I just like the guy.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, the more I read about all this whole alternative energy thing.
Oh, he was in the middle of it.
It's just like, not only was he in the middle of it, the more I look into this stuff, the guy invented 90% of what we have now. Yeah. This was, the cell phone did not come from Star Trek. It came from Tesla. I mean, this guy was doing
I would shop at that hardware store, Starware. Start it immediately. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so I had to throw the name out there just because, I kind of like the guy. I want to have him on as a guest. How's that? Can you arrange that, Nick?
Nikolai Tesla, you want to have on the guest.
I do.
You need to keep looking into these alternative fuels because you missed something there.
Oh, that's right. He's not around anymore, is he?
No, he's not. So where was I before you just blurted out Tesla?
Interrupted you. The magnetic field in the ionosphere.
Okay, so these people I've been hanging out with, I'm not going to disclose names because a few of them are always looking over their shoulder because of the stuff they're working on. But the guy was talking about how the sun, they've just been able to figure out that there's a discharge from the sun at exactly every 8 minutes. And they didn't know what it was. And it's really not matter. It's a pulse that's hitting the earth every 8 minutes and giving like a little bit of a spiral. It's kind of like the equivalent of a basketball player with a basketball on his finger, just tapping it to keep it spinning. And this
now I'm going to have to go Google tonight.
Every 8 minutes, it's hitting the earth.
Really?
So, okay, think of.
I have no idea if you're right or wrong. It's just really cool.
And honestly, neither do I. This is third-hand information. I have not followed up. Exactly.
Do your own research.
Yeah, these guys are much smarter than me and have been in this a lot longer and are doing things that are just magical, if you will.
It's neat when you know somebody like that and you can see the results even if you don't understand how they're getting them.
Exactly.
Cool.
And what's cool is watching something plug into a wall and throw a meter on it and actually have proof that the damn thing's working. And it's not just some mystical guy on the internet's told me about this and I got to try it and something blows up. Anyway, so back to this. If there wasn't that pulse, our entire solar system would collapse in on the sun eventually. Because, if you have a loop on a string to a metal ball at the end of your string and you spin it around you,
right,
that string's keeping it in place. If you were big enough to have a gravitational pull, you wouldn't need the string. But you also would eventually get hit by the metal ball because it's coming towards you. There's nothing out there that's just propelling the planets on its own.
Well, if it's spinning enough, it would. I mean, that's what an orbit is.
Yeah. But even in orbit, we have to correct it from shooting off away from the planet.
But that's gravity keeps it from shooting off, and the centrifugal force keeps it where it is from getting too close, right?
In theory, but eventually satellites fall into the planet if they're not corrected.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. You are so far over my head. I have no idea.
Wear your hair up. Catch those things.
You want to ask me about fish and aquaponics? I'll answer you. You talk to me about this, I'm going to believe you until I go research it and find out otherwise.
Well, then next week we're going to have Don's correction of Nick's theories. But until then.
There you go.
Oh.
We're rambling.
Are we?
Yeah. So I'll go into my Facebook, facebook.com/WeGrowOurs, www.WeGrowOurs/AskUs, Twitter @WeGrowOurs. Come join us. Come join the discussions. Feel free to post stuff, post questions. We try to get back on questions. Speaking of that, did you get my question today? Because you didn't answer it.
The one that was sent like at 5:30 this morning. I was like, yeah, as soon as I wake up, I'll look at this.
So we had a user, I did it again. We had a listener question about using rabbit poop in the garden. And we've talked about how to throw it out there kind of as a time release nitrogen pellets.
Yes.
And he was asking if there's any other way to prepare that to use it immediately in the garden to get the benefits of it. Grinding it. And if it's something like grinding it, what do you use? I mean, a blender, I would think.
Yeah. So you can borrow my blender. I don't think the wife's going to use it.
I knew that was coming. So, and I referred that over to you. I answered his initial question with, you don't need to do anything to it. You can throw it on the garden. But I think he wants those results quicker.
We've talked a little bit about using rabbit turds as soil conditioners.
Right.
But yeah, you can either grind it, or another thing you can do is get an old pillowcase, fill it up with rabbit poop, and stick it in a 55-gallon drum and let it decompose and use the water. Water your garden with the compost tea that's coming out of the...
Oh, you can even catch some methane off of that, I bet.
Sure, yeah. And then use the water as well.
So you take your methane digester and empty it in your garden. That's going to give you that kind of that...
Oh, immediately.
It's immediate.
That is how you make rabbit poop hot, though. Now you've got to
So it is the same then as chicken poop?
Not the same, because it doesn't have... It's higher... You're going to have a ton of nitrates.
Is it going to burn the garden?
I've never done it to...
Okay.
I've not done that. I'm not really a gardener per se.
So I guess the answer would be you can get it wet, and it's going to release a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Because it's going to absorb those nutrients into the water and put that water in your garden, or grind it up and maybe spread it out if you don't want it quite as hot as that.
Yeah. And I'd monitor the pH of the soil, because sometimes rabbit manure will have urine stuck to it.
Yeah.
And that will increase your pH.
And I'll tell you one thing, cleaning my cages recently, I've been working with the whole thing. That dang shop vac just works so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love taking and then I dump that out, and I mean, you're done.
I love the noise that they make when they hit the hose for the first time. I'm giggling.
That's sad.
I know. It's so bad.
I think that means we're a little simple-minded here.
Oh, the best though is I had one of those huge. It's a huge vacuum that you hook up to a wood shop.
You had mentioned that, yeah.
And the idea was to have this thing at the end of the row with a hose dangling at each cage, at each battery, so that everything would drop into the pans over top of the community trough.
Right.
And then I would just wiggle a stick that would take all 4 of the hoses around. And when I fired this thing up, it took my hat off. A
Like you
freaking
didn't get
jet
a rabbit out.
Well, it was like a freaking jet turbine took off out of my yard. This thing was blasted. If I added fuel to it, it would have went into orbit.
Nice. All right, folks.
Anyway, on that note, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week.